Thanks for hanging in there with us as we talk about how the pandemic has impacted the workforce. We're joined by Workzinga, and we just talked a little bit about how culture has been so important. And you guys just recently held a panel. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So one of the things that became pretty clear to us while we were going through the process of really developing what our model was going to be and understanding the dynamic in the recruiting space is that first, this is not going to go away. And second, that companies are going through many things that are essentially the same. They're seeing the same challenges and they're seeing the same dynamic in their workforces. So we thought it would be helpful to bring a panel together of experts in the national space in HR, along with Dr. Rafael, and share some of those experiences. David Plazas did a great job from the Tennessean moderating it. We had some terrific panelists. We had Ellen Hitt, who is the head of people at Tend. We had Rachel Thomas, who is the director of learning and development at Bridgestone, and Cody Rapp joined us. She is an HR professional from Creative Artist Agency. So it was a terrific discussion about some of the trends, some of the things we've already talked about, some of the trends that we're seeing in the recruiting space, the challenges that companies are facing, and some of the things that they can do to try to combat that. And it was a great discussion. We had an online component as well as a pretty robust virtual showing. So we felt like, obviously with COVID, we really wanted to make sure that we could get this out as much as possible. So we put a lot of emphasis on streaming this out to as many people as we could. We had a terrific showing from across the US. We even had some international viewers who all sent in questions that David was able to put to the panelists. So it was just a great opportunity to hear from some professionals and for them to share with each other and with the audience a little bit more about what they're seeing and what they're doing about it. So Dr. Rafael, do you want to talk for a couple minutes about some of the topics we discussed?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a great conversation to have with these three professionals that are living exactly what we were mentioning before in the first person, right? So one of the topics that came up and a few questions from people that were watching us online was about the resignation, this great resignation that's happening. And with that comes, the concern of how to keep everyone, our employees, our collaborators engaged. And the paradigm had to shift. We had to start doing something different. As people move from the office to their homes, the concept of work became more humanized, even dare I say. You see more of the person, you see their homes, their kids, you hear their dogs, and how can you continue to maintain a sense of professionalism? How can you continue to maintain everyone engaged and motivated to do work under such circumstances, right? So one of the ways that we discussed and talked about these new shift that we're making is how can we support each other with the flexibility that each person needs, and it's different types of flexibility. And we cannot discuss flexibility without mentioning trust. Professionals from leadership to employees and vice versa had to employ a new concept of trust that came with flexibility. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting in this work from home concept and even in a hybrid environment that you really have to shift your mindset. If you're going to really effectively have a remote workforce, you've got to focus on trust. You can't continue to nickel and dime and manage people based on their time and attendance and being 2 minutes late. Because when you're in a work from home situation, you just know things are going to happen. You're going to be on a Zoom call and your kid's going to come running into the room. I can tell you firsthand, we've had that happen on one of our Zoom calls with our own team. And we don't think anything about it because that's life. That's not necessarily an attitude that 5 years ago you would have heard that many companies express. But it is something we have to be realistic about. And that was something that the panelists talked about at length. And that is, you really need to redefine what it means to be professional in the workforce and what it means to get results from people and how you manage to those results. Employees are going to look for environments where they're comfortable. They're beginning to see I can get just as much work done at home as I can in an office. So why else would I come in? What's the reason for doing it? How are you going to manage me? Am I still going to be clocking in and out using that same tired dynamic, or is there going to be a new approach? And that's what we've talked about, that companies really need to think about that and embrace it. Now, I'm certainly not advocating that it works for every company or every industry, but everybody is going to have to figure out how to look at their workforce differently, create motivating situations that keep them engaged and really speak to the things that they want.
We do have one viewer that has a quick question for you guys, if that's okay. Mike is on line one. Mike, you're on OpenLine right now. Do you have any questions?
Good evening to you and your guests. It's really strange how a pandemic, a disease like COVID could just change the whole world, and especially the workplace landscape. I knew as an average worker that most corporations were not treating people right. I mean, you've got multi-billion-dollar corporations like Walmart. You've got Kroger, Amazon, and everything, and people consider Amazon paying $15 an hour really great. But when you see Jeff Bezos flying up into space, spending $1 billion-something or more to actually put that thing together and do that, you see that owner really doesn't care about me. And I think COVID made us realize that we're literally living check to check, and I've got an employer that really doesn't care about me. They won't let me off for a relative's funeral, or maybe one day if your mom or dad died. And I think another thing, people are realizing how much they were missing their families because they're working 2 and 3 jobs. COVID put all that into perspective, and I knew one day it would be a revolution within people saying enough is enough. But it's amazing what COVID has done to make us wake up and realize that I'm important, I have purpose, and I deserve to be treated better, and I deserve to be paid more. And so, in a weird way, we don't like COVID. We wish it had never happened. But one of the side things that's a positive is people realizing, treat me better, give me better benefits, and I'll even do better for you to make this corporation be more enhanced than it already is, because I feel like I'm a really part of that growth. And that's basically my opinion. I'll just wait to see what your guests say about it.
I couldn't agree more that there are trends here that we're seeing that have really been in place all along. These are not new things. We're certainly not suddenly seeing that people are not a good fit for their companies. This has been an issue for some time. And part of it goes back to when you're going through the hiring process and you just hire for a very narrow thing, that's what you get without really finding people that fit with your culture. And when employees or when candidates are looking at jobs and they take that first job without really knowing more about what that company's culture is, then they're stuck because they feel like I can't leave because I need a check, yet I'm miserable and I'm not happy. That's not new. You're absolutely 100% correct. That's not new. But I do believe that what we're seeing right now is empowerment, that candidates are shifting the power and they're taking it back. And they're saying that I have choices. And now it's putting companies on notice that I have to be aware of this now. What I might have taken for granted before is now something that I need to strategically plan for and make sure that my environment is one where people are happy, they're motivated, they're satisfied, and that they're going to contribute at a high level because I'm treating them the way they want to be treated, but also because just as a whole, my culture is one where they're going to be happy. And I couldn't agree more. This is not something that's new. What I think it has done, though, is that it's now something people feel more free to act on because they are hearing about it. They're hearing their friends talk about it. They're seeing it in social media. And, you know, it's become a snowball. And when once it starts moving, it's very hard to put that genie back in the bottle. And I think the best approach now is companies have to adapt. And they're going to have to look for ways to attract talent differently than the way they did it before. But more importantly than attract it, they've got to retain it.
Great points. We do have to run to a commercial, so hold those thoughts. Please call in, ask our guests questions if you have them. We'll be right back.